24 Republican National Convention. Join the conversation with Web Channel Politics in Color, powered by Bit Central, Globecast, Lakon Media, and Oza Group.
It's day 3 of the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I'm Wilmer Leon, along with my co-anchors Brian Jenkins and Jonathan Clark. Dara Kennedy is out in the field gaining more information and other footage and interviews, which we will see very, very soon.
Wilmer, we're here in Panther Arena talking with many of the people who are out there, talking with them about their agendas and what they mean for people of color. We'll continue our conversations with folks inside and outside of the convention on topics such as reparations, multicultural issues, and the media.
That's right, Jonathan. In fact, I've had the opportunity to interview some of those folks on those specific issues. We'll be taking a look at them throughout the day. But before all that, what did you all think of yesterday?
Yesterday was an interesting day, but a lot like the day before. I'm still really surprised at what I sense is just a lack of real energy here. And as we talked about earlier, it to me is a lot like this is almost pro forma. It's a matter of they already know what the conclusion to all this is going to be, and they see Joe Biden as really not even relevant here, and so I don't get a sense of we really have to go out and push. We really have to go out and do, because in the minds of many here, it's pretty much already over.
Yeah,
And then, go ahead.
I was going to say, I see more excitement on the outside, the perimeters of the folks who are supporting the former president now. It's just amazing. And what's interesting, when we talk to them about the issues, and I mentioned this Project 2025, there is a sense of total denial that it even exists. And for people of color, it is a dismal picture. We're talking about stripping job protections for federal workers, many of whom are people of color, raising the retirement age, and when you consider the life expectancy for folks of color, well, then we'll never get it. And then there's taking funds away from programs that provide family services, and yet this is a party that is all about the family, they say. So I'm perplexed by the attitudes toward this, and this is the underlying document that they're talking about.
And, well, everyone else is talking about Project 2025. No one here wants to talk about it.
Exactly.
Because for all intents and purposes, it's not the greatest document for them. Some would argue it's not the greatest document for America. But it certainly isn't the greatest document for people here. And the folks who are in this building and in the other buildings on the campus, that's not really a topic they want to talk about because of all the implications that we've been aware of and have been talking about throughout the week. I think one of the things I've noticed here is that is the energy which seemed to start off pretty energetic around here, but that quickly became one of inevitability, which I think could backfire. If you get a little bit too comfortable, then they start taking. There's a thing. If you guys are bigger sports fans than I am, but I recall watching a race with Usain Bolt, and he was so confident that instead of winning by this much, he won by this much. Okay, so he still won.
Right.
But it's because he turned around and looked back and he took his eye off
the goal,
off the race.
Right.
And
off the finish line. That's
a sense that I sort of have here, that this party and the people here assembled have sort of taken their eyes, are starting to get the sort of confidence that may have them taking their eyes off the finish line, and in a race that's going to be as close as I believe this is going to be, that could make all the difference.
I want to get back to the Project 2025 conversation, but following up on your point, I was thinking earlier today with the consternation that's going on right now in the Democratic Party with whether Joe Biden will stay or go, and I think inevitably it's going to have to be go. Today would have been a great day for the Democrats to announce that there's a new candidate on their side. It would have shifted the dialogue. It would have shifted the focus today or tomorrow. If they were to have announced that, it would have shifted the focus away from a lot of this and over to their side of the dialogue. And the longer that they continue to debate the inevitable, what I perceive to be the inevitable, the worse situation it puts them in. What do you all think about that?
Well, maybe for the independents, for the people who are still on the fence and haven't really given their all to one particular candidate, that may be the case. But I will tell you, from the people I've encountered, like I say, on the outskirts of the convention, not the delegates, not those folks that are talking platform, but the folks outside wearing the Trump hats, the T-shirts, buying the Bibles, and all of that stuff. Man, this is Trump mania. If you
there's
ever
no question
wanted to
about
see
that.
it is here. Unlike any other place I've ever been, Trump mania is alive and well here today.
I love that idea of, but here's how, if I were a strategist and, if they paid me strategist money, I think I'd certainly say, hey, let's let him have his moment, give him his one-day bump, and then come out fresh and just steal the energy back with an announcement, if that's going to come at all. The Democrats have to make a decision. They're going to need to make a quick decision. If Biden is going to stay, then let him stay and just get full. But it's becoming increasingly impossible for him to do that. Adam Schiff is off the Biden train now.
And see,
Jerry Nadler's off the Biden train now.
And those two, when I heard that those two had changed the positions or stated the positions that they've taken, that's what made me think, with that being said, this would have been a perfect time. And
because the permission slip has been granted.
Well, we can look at it that way. We can look at it that way. See, I think every day that you give Donald Trump is a day lost in a situation where you can't afford to lose days. So if you're going to make that move, stealing the focus, and not even all of the attention, and also think about what that would do with Donald Trump up on the fourth floor, up in the other stadium, if he got that announcement. Because the one thing that they are looking towards and looking forward to is Joe Biden. The one thing that they don't want to do is have to run against somebody else, whoever that somebody else may be. That's going to force them to change their entire focus. And if you're looking offense versus defense, that's a move you want to make, and you want to make that move as quickly as you can.
Someone who's younger.
Go ahead.
Someone who's younger and is going to do inevitably a much better job of articulating the message.
Well, let me bring you back to the GOP convention before we start talking about the Democrats. I'm still flummoxed about the J.D. Vance decision, because there are a lot of folks here who are looking at that, scratching their heads going, J.D., wait a minute.
Right.
He just was on the total other side. He's the guy who called your leader a Nazi. And here we are with J.D.
Well, he didn't call him a Nazi. He called him Nazi-esque.
Yes.
He called him Hitler. He called him Hitler. He called into question his morals.
So I mean, there's so many members of his team that were on the other side, that were never Trumpers, that are now all
the way. From what I understand, Lindsey Graham was on the floor of the convention lobbying against Vance up until the very last moment. And
why would he do that?
Well,
what's in it for Lindsey, who himself was a staunchly, and I mean, he called
no. See, he
called him the devil.
You've just hit. He called him narcissistic. He called him self-absorbed. I believe he called him a racist. And
he said it would be the worst thing that his party could have done back in 2016.
Exactly. And so now he has shifted his position there. So now, trying to understand the logic, there really does not seem to be a lot of logic, which is one of the points that I wanted to make about the selection of J.D. Vance. When you're thinking about who your vice president selection is going to be, you look at, well, is there a geographic constituency that the nominee brings? Is there a gender a demographic? What are the policy issues that what is the value add to the ticket is the question that you're always trying to answer. And I don't really know what the answer to that question is as it relates to J.D. Vance.
Well, maybe it's those old Saturday Night Live qualifications. Remember the guys are, we're young, we're tough, we're good looking.
and he has a beard. And I'm partial to beards.
And Donald Trump is not.
And Donald Trump is not.
Which is why you weren't selected.
Well, I sure threw my hat.
But I want to go back to 2025 for a minute, because the fact that they're running from this when it's one of their major think tanks that published it, when there are a number of Donald Trump's former staff members that co-wrote it.
Yes.
And then the former president wants to say, well, I know nothing about this.
They pushed it off on the Heritage Foundation,
right?
Like this is some outside entity. But so many of those authors were former staff members.
And here's the one thing that I think is very important for a lot of people to understand. As there is a lot of concern about 2025, as there should be, it's nothing new.
Exactly.
It is the rehash of the Contract with America, which I call the Contract on America, which was written by or promoted by Newt Gingrich.
Right.
We've got it's a rehash of the Southern Strategy. I mean, there are a number of things. There are a number of the Powell Doctrine from 1971 or 1972. There are a number of elements to this event that to this document. It's the rehash of a lot of old information that has been a stalwart within the Republican Party for a number of years.
I'm going to tack to just a slightly different. I think the principles and the concepts are nothing that we haven't seen before. The concentration of power in the executive branch, the immediacy with which they intend to do it, and the velocity which they intend to do it, and the way we're talking about a 900-page or so document.
Right.
You don't spend 1,000 pages talking about a wish list. You know, when your mommy said, "Hey, what do you want for Christmas?"
Exactly.
You grab a piece of paper and you write down a couple of things. This is not a couple of things for Christmas. This is something that some serious thought has gone into.
Oh, absolutely.
In a way that Republicans have not taken. Have not made the effort to do so before, and they're doing it in anticipation of someone who they believe isn't going to pay a whole bunch of attention, to be honest, to the details, right. but does have the pen and isn't afraid to use it.
And timing is critical too.
Always.
You talked about the velocity of this.
Yeah.
Well, they're looking at the census. They see that in the last 10 years, 51% of the population growth was in the Latino population. They look at the groups that are growing in numbers and they see who's going to be voting in 10, 15 years and where their futures lie. So if they're going to impose something like 2025, it better be in 2025.
Yeah, and that is what we're seeing that makes this a little bit, the conditions behind this right now, I think have the pressure of that. We've got a certain immediacy now that we didn't have when Newt Gingrich was speaker. We've got an immediacy that's developed over the past, quite literally, has escalated in the past, accelerated. I'm sorry, in the past 15 years, and particularly after Obama was president. And so there's that immediacy, and they're intending to do these things within the first 100 days. Let's not forget that as well.
What are when you look back on yesterday and some of the people that we interviewed, a number of the people that we spoke to, did anybody stand out? Did any particular issues stand out to either of you?
I thought the election specialist that joined us for a moment, I forget his name now, but it was interesting how he talked about the investigation into all of this election fraud. But they didn't really find anything, despite what Mr. Lindell and the former president have constantly been projecting. They didn't find anything. And his agency was responsible for looking into that in 6 states. So, this is a man who worked on the Trump campaign. So when you have folks who have left the campaign and now are, speaking the truth to the American people, you got to wonder how long they can continue to put this out there. Well, there's election fraud when there really wasn't.
And to that point, I found it very puzzling that Monday night when the former president appeared virtually in the arena on the screen, as it seems as though the party is trying to move away from that conversation, he doubled down on that element of the conversation, still promoting the big lie.
Yeah. I think what struck me is Nikki Haley and Ted Cruz. And these are two people who fought tooth and nail, as they say, against Trump at various points in their political aspirations and aspirations to be president. And Nikki Haley was very critical of Trump during the primary and hung on for as long as she could. And she had backing to hang on. She had the dollars to hang on, and said some pretty damaging things about the president while she was running. And yesterday, and back in March, when she finally got out of the race, she did so with only very light, a very tepid endorsement of Trump, saying that now he needed to win over the people who didn't vote for him. And this time she gave a full-throated, forceful endorsement of him, going far beyond where she was before, and even where you could arguably say that she needs to be. And I would say that's because she wants to continue to be a player in Republican politics.
Sure. I think of a lesson my father used to say. He said, "Son, what's the golden rule? He who has the gold makes the rules." And I think that is clearly what is happening in this case.
But what does that say to you, if anything, about values, about principles, about how can we have any faith, any trust, any belief in what you say when at one point in the process and not too long ago, the individual that you're now supporting, you were comparing to Hitler. You were calling a narcissist. You were calling a racist. You were calling anything but a child of God. Yeah. And now you're on board, you're smiling, you're grinning, you're cheesing, you're doing here in Wisconsin, you're doing everything that you can do to bring this, by their words, not ours. You are now doing everything you can do to bring this self-absorbed, narcissistic Nazi to be president of the United States again.
I'm going to challenge you guys right now. I'm going to catch you completely off guard because we didn't. I'm going to even throw in our producer Frank over here, who's going to start the stopwatch when I ask this question. Name. So here we go. Here goes the stopwatch. Now we're gonna catch you off guard right here. I want you to name a current supporter of Donald Trump now who has not been a critic of his, a vociferous, forceful critic of his before now.
Ivanka Trump.
And the two
not
sons.
named Trump.
See, now you want. I won the game, and now you want to change. See, just like they do. Now you want to change the rules of the game after our argument.
We're still invited guests.
Oh, wait a minute. The daughter's husband.
There you go.
Whatever
his name is.
So now we're Archie Bunker here. We're going to keep it all in the family, right?
Well, and after those two, it gets kind of hard. The pickings get kind of slim because where is his wife?
Wow.
I should have asked that question.
You'll find Waldo first.
On a more serious note, we have to ask the question to voters of color, regardless Asian, Hispanic, black, whatever you are. You have to ask yourself, because we hear this from black Republicans all the time, the Democratic Party has fallen short. What are they doing? What is Biden doing to attend to our interests? And those who look to the Republican Party and ask that same question, and they're going to look at that Project 2025 and ask their legislators, well, what is this party going to do for me and mine? And it's a legitimate question that we have to ask of both parties.
Well, one of the guests that we had yesterday, Alice Johnson, who was released from prison, who started the program that she did, and she talked about how many prisoners have been released through the Trump administration. That one right there is a check in the win box on that side of the column.
Certainly.
You saw Brian's vest here and started thinking of the color purple. Brian and I, while we were having lunch yesterday, we ran into these really two nice delegates. They were from Virginia, and while we had lunch, we sat down and we spoke with them, and I asked one of them. I said, "Okay, you guys seem like really nice people," and they did. They sat and they talked to us and they opened up to us. And
They seem to be very nice.
They seem to be nice.
seem to be.
We didn't know them very long,
But they seem to be.
They seem to be
very
nice. They were certainly willing to talk to us. And I said, hey, with all of the things we've seen about Donald Trump that don't seem like they're so positive, what is it that you like about Donald Trump?
And these were two elderly, not elderly, they're
Yeah,
about
well,
my age, maybe in their 60s, white
Yeah.
ladies.
Uh-huh.
So we should preface that
Yeah,
because
right.
now you'll have a better idea what our expectation was.
And they're from Virginia.
Okay.
And we were talking about that. And she said, okay, well, I actually grew up further south than Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
So she was trying to make a point that she was from the deep south.
Yeah.
And she said this, she said, down there in the south, we don't really like mealy-mouthed people.
Mm-hmm.
She said, if you say something, they like it when you say it.
Say what you mean what you say.
Yeah.
But the problem is,
And they said
he
that
says
he
a lot of things that he doesn't mean
But
and he doesn't do.
The thing
The
that
fact
they
he
went
says
on
things
He says it.
that he does
right.
mean.
Right.
And the thing that they went on to say was, and he has delivered on his promises. Now, you and I would sit here and we might take issue with that,
Right.
but in their minds,
That's
they
their
believe
perception.
that he says it and that he delivers. But they also said that they were Christians, and he's given them a court that's taken away Roe. So, in
And
many
I jumped
respects, he's
in.
delivered.
At that point, I said, you know what? Let me ask this question. If I'm a person of color who's open to Republican policies and taking a look at, hey, well, what are these people going to do for us? And I hear the leader say to me, this is my idea of respect for women. Grab them by the. And I asked those ladies that question. And I said, as women, and I have 3 daughters. So my immediate reaction was that, well, that's not the guy that's going to get my vote. I don't care what his policies are. What about the man? And it was amazing that their willingness to overlook, to say, well, men say this, men do this. And I said, but what if that was
Locker
your
room
husband?
talk is,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
how it was dismissed.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other
what-
thing
But
that
what
she
if
said-
it was
oh,
your
yeah.
husband? What if it was your son?
Mm-hmm.
And now there's some. Well, Bill Clinton did ...
Right?
And I get that deflection all the time.
And you remember the other thing she said was, yeah, I actually had, she admitted that she had problems with that.
Yeah.
But then she also said, I talked to my friend and she said, we're not electing a pope, we're electing a
Yeah,
president.
she did say that.
And, and we certainly didn't get a pope.
Is that your alarm going off, Frank?
Still haven't come up with that answer.
So, with that, we are here live. Politics and Color is here live at the Republican National Convention here in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. There's a whole lot more in store. Stay tuned.
Tell me what it is you do.
We're a broadcast engineering and distribution firm. And we also like to say that we've produced some of the world's most watched events. And that means everything from a one-camera shoot to rolling in a mobile truck that's an expando. That means everything from rolling in a satellite truck to coordinating your fiber so that you can be, your broadcast can be seen anywhere in the world. Anything from an edit to bringing in producers to help get, your concept off of paper or out of your mind onto the screen. So we consider ourselves to be a 360-degree communications company.
What was the magic moment for you? Magic moment, breakthrough, big break for you, and maybe what was the big break for Blake Hunt?
We got a chance to produce live television in Russia and Cuba. And so if you can produce content in communist countries that the world can see, you can do this anywhere.
When did you get the notion that sports was an area where you could diversify? The first notion.
Well, when you think about sports, and you think about sports in the U.S., there are so many sporting areas to go into. I mean, we got a call from NASCAR. Whoever thought we'd be doing NASCAR? I certainly didn't, but NASCAR ended up being a huge client of ours, okay? When they first started the NFL Network, we were doing a lot of NFL Network stuff during preseason. That also led us into doing a lot more NCAA. So everything kind of fed off of the other one. It was, if people said, oh, well, you can do this, well, you can do this also. And so after a while, it just expanded to we've actually done every sport that the NCAA has. I think they got 48 collegiate sports. We've done all 48 of those sports.
When do you begin to hatch this vision for Blakon Media?
A gentleman asked me to come and join the Gore Lieberman campaign in 2000. So that was my first opportunity to work in a presidential campaign. And I was responsible for all the live shots, and I built a studio in Nashville. So if you remember, that was the Hanging Chads campaign.
Yeah.
We thought that we were going to go to the White House. We ended up without jobs. So I moved back to Washington and started working for a company called CONUS, which is no longer in business. And at CONUS, they hired me as a sales engineer. So I said, okay, this is what I need. I said, I'm going to do this for 1 year. I'm going to actually learn how to sell the services that help broadcasting move. And so after 1 year, I resigned. I moved to Atlanta. We started Blakon Media.
What new spaces can you even envision being available in this ever-changing field that we're in?
Well, I'm excited about these new technologies, and I'm excited about some of the young guys that I have met who are engineers, because they're helping me really understand what the possibilities are for this whole next generation. Space science, that's really what it is. It's a whole nother realm. It's a whole nother way to receive content, to send content, to experience content. As much as it's changed over the last 30 years, it's nothing like the way it's going to change over the next 10.